Yeah, right.
Just says, you need to go walk, go.
I'd be down with that, it'd be fine for me.
To get rid of me, you mean? Thanks.
No, still,
So good morning, everyone. Welcome to the January 16th, 2026 meeting of the Downtown Development Authority, our first meeting of the new year. Hope everyone had at least a enjoyable holiday season, perhaps not restful, but at least enjoyable. And now we're back in the swing of things in our wintry weather. So, but anyway, we will get started by roll call, please.
here.
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 Here. Here.
Here. Here.
Okay, we have quorum. Thank you. Next, review and approval of the agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
I move we accept the agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have Mayor asking for approval and Mr. Kirkwood seconding. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We have our first public comment session. We have two public comment sessions, one at the beginning of the meeting and one at the end of the meeting, and we welcome public participation at any of these comment sessions. Is there anyone who wishes to make a comment at this time? Seeing none, go on to the consent calendar. So the purpose of the consent calendar is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one DDA board motion without discussion. Any member of the DDA board, staff, or the public may ask that any item on the consent calendar be removed therefrom and placed elsewhere on the agenda for individual consideration by the DDA board, and such requests will be automatically respected. If an item is not removed from the consent calendar, the action noted in parentheses on the agenda is approved by a single DDA board action adopting the consent calendar. Item A, consideration of approving the minutes of the December 19th, 2025 DDA regular board meeting minutes. Approval is recommended. Item B, consideration of approving the December 2025 financial reports and distributions for the DDA General, Old Town TIF, and TIF 97 funds. Approval is recommended. Item C, consideration of approving the December 2025 financial report and distributions for the Traverse City Arts Commission. Approval is recommended. Item D, consideration to accept the audited financial statements for the Downtown Development Authority for the year ending June 30th, 2025. Approval is recommended. So does anyone, either on the board or in the public, wish to remove any of these items from the consent calendar? I don't see any. So would anyone care to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
So Mr. McMillan makes a motion. Is there a second?
I'll support.
Ms. Early supports. Any questions on the consent calendar? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. So moving on to our more formal part of the agenda. Let's start with the special order of business and meet our downtown community police officer.
Good morning, everyone. This is a position and a partnership with the TCPD that I think has really paid dividends for downtown and Traverse City as a whole. This was started about 4 years ago after collaboration with TCPD about community policing. And it was determined at that time that we would use our TIF funds to support a full-time community downtown police officer. Many of you know Officer Culver. He's moved on to a different position, and so after some lengthy interviews and applications, the TCPD has selected Jared Garvin. And Jared, if you don't mind, I'm going to have you come up to the podium and just maybe introduce yourself. You know your history better than I. So, but he's new as of about 2 weeks ago, and so I just want to make sure that everyone knows who he is and do an introduction. And he's already made himself welcome downtown and is doing kind of the rounds with downtown businesses and business owners. So thought this was a good opportunity for you all to meet him as well. So.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jared Garvin, like Harry said. Born and raised in Traverse City. I rarely leave Traverse City. I'm kind of a homebody. I love the place. Like Harry said, I've been walking around downtown, introducing myself to business owners. It's been very apparent that I did not realize how many businesses were downtown and how many are hidden around. It's becoming very slowly apparent, but I'm doing my best to swing in. Been working quite a few night shifts and stuff like that, just to kind of mingle with the late night folk and stuff like that, and just kind of continuing on what Officer Culver's been doing, maybe introducing some new ideas with that night shift stuff, and just some nighttime enforcement and just public relations in general. I know he didn't really visit downtown a lot at night, so I'm trying to find that hybrid schedule where I can kind of just expose myself to everyone and make myself available to everyone through all hours of the night. I'm really looking forward to continuing this position. It's been very rewarding so far. It's been very different than what I'm used to at the department. I've been working nights at the department for my 2 years there, so doing the day shift stuff is a little bit new to me, but it's been very rewarding so far. I met a lot of good people so far and exchanged business cards and stuff like that, and hopefully just getting my name out there and let them know that I'm always available for whatever they need.
I love how you have been so proactive and just getting out there and rounding and meeting people. So great jobs already. Thank you.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, and I would say, I guess a benefit to us that you're coming off the night shift is that you're willing to kind of create a swing shift periodically to get that middle time and cover the evenings as well. I know all of our business owners, even the ones who kind of primarily operate in the evening when under the previous with Officer Culver, still really appreciated it. So I'm sure that they're really grateful that you're kind of making that a little extra effort too. So thank you for doing that.
No problem. I enjoy it.
Any other questions or comments? All I can say is I know when Officer Culver moved to his new position, he received a lot of accolades. And I say that just because I think it really states how much the community appreciates the community police officer. So I'm very happy that you're in your new role and look forward to working with you.
Thank you. Officer Culver's been a tremendous pillar of support for me so far. I bug him almost daily. With
Sure.
some guidance and just trying to continue on, so I appreciate it, guys.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
So moving on to our old business, presentation on the Riverwalk.
So this is an exciting day. This is, in many respects, this process started in 2017-18 with the creation of a subcommittee to create a unified plan for the Lower Bowman River. That plan was approved, and then we've kind of systematically moved on to really fine-tune some of the areas that we want to work on. And the primary target has been the 100 block of Front Street. And so we work with Inform Studio to do a very complex conceptual design for essentially what I'm calling phase one, which is the J. Smith Walkway, a new pedestrian bridge into Lot B. And based on the success of that conceptual design, we then continued our work with Inform Studio to develop the schematic design and some design development work, which is what we're going to present today. So I'm going to stop talking and introduce our consultants from Inform Studio. We have Renee Baker and Michael Guthrie here. Michael is the partner principal of Inform Studio and has been with us almost 2.5 years plus to kind of walk us through this process. And I'm going to turn over to him to kind of talk about the design that's presented today. So.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here. Do I need to have this?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, I thought so. Really appreciate it. I would love to have Renee come and talk because she is a resident here. She loves this place, but she prefers to have me do the presentation. So, but she's a wonderful part of this community and just been a great asset. Just from knowledge base like the day-to-day, it's great to hear Jared. And it's just such a great community. We're just so excited to be a part of it, and thank you for entrusting the work that we've done to date. I'm going to show things that are probably more related in the schematic design side and then sort of sample in some of the design development drawings. They're a little bit more technical, a little bit boring, but I also want to give you the sort of sense of the comprehensiveness that we have, both for just development within the project and also the assurity for the estimating that has gone along with it along the way. So there's been some very detailed estimating so that we have good assurity in the progress that we're making on the design side. So without further ado, this is a little bit of the team that we've been working with. We've been the prime on the project. SMM is a landscape, very sustainably minded, and they really cross over into stormwater kind of issues, who also partners with HRC, which is very local here from the civil engineering side. And then Bureau Happold, which brings a really like world-renowned level of both structural engineering so that we can be very smart about how we do this structurally, and also lighting design. So it's a little bit of the team that's been put together. So I want to introduce this a little bit in the sense of a sequence of programming. This is an overall, what I would call site plan that takes you from the lower part of this, which would be the south side, from Front Street all the way to the parking lot to the north, and really thinking about the connection of the farmers market within that. So there's sort of a sequence that goes from south to north. You can also look at it north to south, but I think just to connect to the city, because that's the thing that is a little bit more familiar with, is easier to do. So the first piece that we're going to talk through is the sort of J. Smith Walkway, what it's been like to reimagine that a little bit. And I would say the heavy emphasis has been, we really want to be able to see more people moving through, a comfortability. It's still a place, but let's give a little bit more room and breadth for people to be able to make this crossing. When we look at the South Plaza, there's sort of a key area. There's a transition between what would be alleyway, or within the alleyway from the river to J. Smith Walkway. And I think we've really tried to reimagine that almost as a catalyst that could talk about how the alleyway and the parking still supports what's needed from a parking side, but could be rethought of as a place. And so that was really important to consider. We'll talk about that a little bit more detail. There's the crossing itself, and working with things so that, hey, we could do this project now. It's not dependent on the retaining wall that's there, and we know there's a whole nother story with that. I'm just going to put that to the side and say this can be independent of that. It's also, if somebody decides they want to do the retaining wall, can be integrated within this too, but it can be independent, and that's important to note. And then as we go to the north landing, is really thinking about some placemaking, what it means to be able to connect people both to the river, to events that would be going there, specifically the farmers market, and really safe crossing, and so everybody feels very comfortable. I think overall, it's also to be able to give this a little bit more identity so that the river now feels highly connected to the city. And so hopefully you'll see that as we go through a little bit of the detailing of it. So those are the different zones. I should also say on the north side, there's more of a river terrace, which is the part that connects to the river, and then a North Plaza, which is a little bit of the idea of making a place before you get to the parking, before you get to the farmers market. With that, this is kind of an overall look, feel of what that would be like. And what you can see here is we're trying to prioritize the pedestrian or micro mobility connection of Front Street to the parking. So currently there's sort of layers that I would say go east-west, and we certainly want to support the idea of the sidewalk that's on Front Street, of walking along the riverfront, but to be able to say, let's prioritize now the connectivity, and so that it feels contiguous and you don't feel like you're crossing thresholds as you go from one layer to the next. So this is a really primary aspect of connecting the space and looking at it really within two materials. There's a hardscape material. The bridge itself is a wood structure on the surface, and that's very connected to the sort of biophilic aspects that we're trying to get, very natural. But there's a continuity in material all the way from Front Street all the way to the North Plaza area. So just getting a little bit more detail within this, what are the impacts that are going to be there? So we want to look at J. Smith Walkway and the South Plaza area, just to make it clear, hey, there's some adjustments, there's some things that will be different within this. One of the things that we looked at, and I'm going to look at this diagram, far left is the south side. Then you have J. Smith Walkway in the middle, and then to the right is the parking that's there. We've kind of, in the hashed area, is showing this is the area that's going to be affected. So the asphalt will be dug up, there'll be some regrading, all of those types of things. And then it's really the demo plan. So everything that would be demolished to make the project happen. There are, on the south side or the left side, 2 on-street parking spaces that we would look to remove so that we can create a little bit more of a visual connection, so there aren't cars parked right in front of it, and it connects it to the crossing that happens along Front Street to J. Smith Walkway. So this will give much more of a visual connection to the walkway itself by opening that space. Then to the far right, we're looking to eliminate about 12 parking spaces in order to create what would be the South Plaza. Really, it's the transition area to go from J. Smith Walkway to the bridge crossing itself. And then the J. Smith Walkway would be completely redone within the middle. One of the things that we want to give a sort of sense of is to the right side on this one is Front Street, and the left side is towards the river. So this is a cross section through J. Smith Walkway. And what we want to give a sense of is there's still some placemaking that can be there where people can rest and sit, and benches and those types of pieces. Also, maybe some small tables and chairs so you have some small seating, ice cream. I mean, the amount of people that get ice cream here in the summer is amazing. And just, a place to sort of sit around and enjoy kind of the day as you're crossing from one place to another. But you can see sort of a transition where it becomes a little bit more urban on the Front Street side and then moves into a little bit more landscape as you move to the left closer to the river. The other thing that's really interesting within this, and people don't recognize it right away, but you kind of have a slope. So on Front Street, it's a little bit higher. Towards the river, it's a little bit lower. So we really wanted to take advantage of when you approach, you're able to see over people's heads and sort of see the river approaching. So there's a really strong visual connection of where I'm going. And so we really try to play that up within this. The other aspect is to be able to say, when we're thinking about this as a place, Traverse City is just known so much, obviously, for its cherries and, probably like globally, but also known as like a city of trees. And it's kind of a tree city in USA. So we look to say, hey, these are the things that are about the natural environment and to integrate the natural environment in. So we wanted to be able to accommodate essentially trees on both sides. So you feel like they're a canopy. Did you have a question?
Just, I didn't mean to interrupt your flow.
No problem.
You'll talk about what's going to be on the ground. You're
Yes.
Talk about that, and also clarifying where that water element that's there is 86th, right?
Yes. Yeah, we'll get real clear. I'll go into a plan on the next one. So, and really, maybe to follow up and help answer that question, is to simplify it so you feel like you're within green, but you're really making the walkway the primary aspect of this. So this gives you a little bit of a sense of it's more open space that people are moving through, but you feel like there's a sort of tree-lined condition that exists within it. And it transitions. I think an important part was recognizing things that, hey, people love to take selfies at the Traverse City mural, and to really be able to say, hey, the things that are valuable here, let's preserve those and make sure they're still a part of it. Maybe even make it a little bit more open and apparent that's there. And so it's quite simplified, but at the same time, it still gives the ability to have some tables and chairs that can also be moved around and staged and different, depending on if you want to do different events. And then the trees really line the sides. So this gives you a little bit of a sense of top right within this is a sort of paving pattern that we would look to integrate. And these are concrete pavers. It allows a little bit of filtration of water into this zone as well. So even though we're touching a very small area, we want to be very sustainably minded and set, more of a precedent for stormwater, both quantity and quality management within the project as well. And the idea is that patterning would exist, and it's not, it's at a little bit of a hex kind of shape. It also is at a little bit of an angle, and it creates something that's not so driven in terms of a direction. It allows a different sense of it. But you can see the striation is very north-south. So it gives a sort of sense of visual connectivity to movement. What you see within this, and this is where it's getting to more of the technical drawings within this, But the area that's sort of hatched and is a little bit darker, that would be all the surface area that you could walk on. So it's a fair amount, really strong connection, and goes right into the South Plaza. And we'll talk a little bit about, I'm going to see if I can get, yeah, if you can see my hand sort of within this area, is that we would take that paving pattern and it would move right across the alleyway, and then we would have slopes that exist on the side. So this is creating a speed table so that it prioritizes the pedestrian movement that's there. So as a vehicle, you need to slow. It's kind of a little bit of a speed bump type of feel, but for the pedestrian, you're not stepping off curb or ramping down. You're just walking smoothly right along the connected paving that's there. So, and you can see the sort of sense like within this zone, we're a little bit more urban. It goes from edge to edge of building. As we get into this zone, we have landscape area that's within it. And then as it gets a little bit further along, there's more landscape, right? So there's a kind of gradient in the density of vegetation that would be there. And essentially on the sides, it would just be low-level shrubs you can sort of see on the edges there, and then the tree canopy that would be above it. So here's kind of the number of trees that are here. The other thing that we show, just in terms of details and understanding how we're handling water on the site, is there are soil cells that are set underneath this. So that allows water capture to occur. It's also going to really extend the life of the trees and make them much healthier, so that way we have a good amount of planting area underneath, even though we have paved surface above. Yes, Peter?
Sorry to keep interrupting.
No, please feel free to be interactive in this.
No, and will there be a chance to opine on aesthetics at some point, or sort of just like talk about how it looks? Is that what you're looking for here, or is it just what do you need from us?
That's good. I think we're just looking for an update, support on it, and hopefully, I think you're going to see things that are a little bit more renderings of these. I wouldn't say we're to the details or looking for feedback of, do you like this paving, material? But just overall, yes, this is the direction that we want. And if you have any concerns along the way, bring them up. So if we move into construction documents, which we hope to at some point this year, you're able to integrate those comments.
Well, it looks very impervious, but you talked about how there's some infiltration happening in the pavers, and there's these tree wells and stuff like that. Is the result here more or less pervious than it was before? Is it better or worse for stormwater?
It's much more pervious, and it's much better. I think what I'm trying to get at is the amount of area that we're touching is small relative to the shed, right? But what we are doing within it, proportionally what was there to what's now going there, is much better.
Which is why I think about that in everything we do, so
exactly.
That's why I'm asking.
Which is why I bring up the soil cells and things like that. So you have the sort of paving area, but you have the soil underneath that allows for the filtration to not only happen for stormwater quantity, but it also addresses the quality issue because we're getting good soil within it. Probably this detail, top right, gives you the sort of best sense of this, right? So it's sort of stacked above, and that way you're able to have filtration when the water goes into the ground. And if you look at it, that's actually happening underneath the paved area as well. It does two things. One, it gives us more walkable surface to be on than not. However, it's going to allow the quality of filtration of the water, but also support the trees so that they have a little bit more room for roots to grow and things of that nature. So it really serves a number of different purposes within that. Again, this is similar kind of thing. There are other elements that are integrated. This is a section right at the South Plaza. So if you look at something like this, we have zones where now, as we put in new paving material back in, we're sloping it. It's creating a rain garden so that there's moments where we have landscape pieces that can become performative for stormwater quality too. So there's a beautification aspect of it because it's green area, but it's also, and you'll be able to see that too visually. It's very clear what looks like a rain garden as opposed to sort of mounded landscape with plant material in it. So there's a good amount of like teaching within this as well as the performative aspects that it creates. This is a little bit of a sense of approach. It's not a perfect rendering at this point. It's very loose, but here you get a sort of sense of the diamond pattern shaping. It's somewhat directional, but it leaves a lot of variegation within it. But where the speed table allows you to move, directly across. We're still working on, in terms of the rendering, the amount of slope or edge, so it's not quite as tight as it looks in this rendering. But also the other aspect of starting to look at like seating pebbles and things like that that would go in. So you're not having to put bollards to keep vehicles to go through, but it does keep vehicles from going through. But it's much more arranged in a way that feels like it's natural seating as opposed to something in the way of security. Here you get a little bit of better sense of the landscape on either side, which is twofold. We want to pull it back enough so that it's not obstructive, so as vehicles are going, they will definitely be able to have a good visual of people who are approaching the speed table and the crosswalk, but at the same time, there's enough vegetation and it kind of closes up the area where it slows vehicles because they don't feel as comfortable speeding through it, and the speed table itself obviously has its desired effect as well.
Quick question on that spot.
yes,
Are we using as influence at all the other pedestrian bridge that we have down the river a bit, up the river a bit?
In what way would be the influence?
Well, just it is designed. It was actually one of our first little bridges that we actually had some thought to and put some landscaping to. So just wondering if it's any influence or we're just going 100% on its own.
I think
Any continuity there?
Yeah, I wouldn't say like from an aesthetic, the bridge itself has necessarily an influence.
More the entryway.
So yeah, so that I think and if you recall, we kind of did the master plan as well. So I think we've always been thinking of each of these as the individual realizations of that so that they tell a larger picture. So I would say philosophically, conceptually what we're trying to accomplish and how we're trying to accomplish it, even with what would be similar landscape material, there's some cohesion across the entire area. So we don't want to have it so individualistic that it just feels like, wow, this is totally foreign from that area. We want to make sure that there's some cohesion along the entire.
I actually didn't have a strong opinion either way, but I just
No,
was curious.
But I think it's important
Yeah.
that you feel as though, everything has, sort of connectedness. But there are, unique moments about this bridge than say what the other one would be.
A lot of that can come, I think, in material choices that happen later. Ipe lumber or Corten structural members and stuff like that.
Yeah, and we are integrating those. We're kind of, since we're on the bridge deck and you brought up Ipe, we've kind of talked a little bit about that. It's not something that couldn't be included. We're looking at a little bit more sustainable sourcing choices, and I think that there are some great alternatives. There's a whole collection of things, and we'll continue to evaluate that as we go. But to that point, we felt like it was really important to bring wood into the fold for this, particularly the experience of crossing the bridge itself. So here's where you're seeing that transition where we're going from more of the paver material to the wood. The one thing it gives us too is a really clear aspect of drainage. So the joints will be relatively tight, so you can walk in heels, all those types of things. It also gives a little bit of a different texture of how you're reading on it. It allows the drainage to happen in between the joints, but people just really connect to the wood in terms of the biophilic aspect, or really like understanding nature. And there's sort of the translation between tree into the wood environment that's there, and we really wanted it to feel like it was naturalized. The structure itself, and you can kind of see on this image on the right, it's really being supported predominantly on the right side. And we've had a lot of questions about what's with the juxtaposition and the sort of bend in it and all those types of things. Why isn't it straight? Well, there's a couple of things that's at work here, but with the proximity to the alley and the tightness that we have there, there's a certain amount of height that we want to be able to maintain for eagle approvals going over the bridge. So we have to raise the height overall a bit. In doing that, we didn't want to have just only stairs and things like that for people to be able to get to it. So to have it universally designed, when we put the kink in it, it allows us to get a little bit more runway before we have to start to cross. But at the same time, it also creates a little bit of a visual interest and more of a destination aspect of it. So when we see where it happens at the apex and you have the sort of kink in it. That's also a really great place to come out and stand at the point to look down the river. It gives you a little bit of a sense of placemaking, but it's also, and we've got another slide in here that shows some of the widths, comfortable enough where people can sit, stand, and still have pedestrians and people be able to move by. The other aspect that I would, sort of illustrate here is you can see the speed table further to the right. This is where there would be seating within it, but there could also be loose seating, and it's a little bit more of a place where you're up high, and then you can look down into the river. And there's kind of a threefold dynamic that occurs here because there's a sense of placemaking that happens on the south. There's this sort of bend or apex that happens within the bridge, and then the river terrace that's happening on the south. And so you're not only able to get a sense of like looking at the natural environment that's there from three different types of perspectives, one low, one up high, one within, but you have now a really interesting social relationship where you're seeing people who are standing at the edge of the bridge, sitting at the plaza. So it really creates kind of a space that's almost amphitheater-like that is focused on the river. And we felt like that was really important to like celebrate the idea of the river within this. So you're not just going from Bay to Front Street. The river is a big part of what you're looking at, and why you've had the Boardman-Ottaway, plan is to really heighten that. So we feel like this is a really great opportunity to take advantage of that in a lot of different comprehensive moments.
Can I ask a question? Sorry, on the previous. What is the round circle that's on the far left bottom? That large circle?
This one here?
Yes.
That's a huge tree. So that's probably a good thing to touch on too. What we've wanted to be able to do is to preserve the existing ecology where it made sense as much as possible. So the landing point that's situated within this, there's a large tree here. This one's more an evergreen tree. This one's more deciduous. That's why they're rendered a little bit differently. And there was a real interest in not feeling like this was sort of completely blown away, but how do we integrate trees within it so that it still feels very much within the riverfront. So they would be deciduous. You're still getting a sort of sense of visual through it, but to still allow it to feel like, hey, this is part of the shoreline. It's not sort of carving out a whole area and really looking at it being naturalized.
And you were using the word speed table a couple times in the presentation. So are speed tables on both sides of the bridge?
So that's a great question. As a part of this project, this speed table would be here. Our limit of design right now is kind of at the curb. So we're not crossing over, but we've been working collaboratively with the design team that's doing the farmers market so that there's an alignment here so that there could potentially be a speed table or not. That's not necessarily a part of the project. Certainly alignment is such that where the landing is here and there's kind of a tree on either side, that would be the connection to go to the primary area within the farmers market, so that there's a lot of continuity between farmers market to the bridge to J. Smith Walkway and then Front Street. This gives you a little bit of sense of width at the mouth. So the idea is that it really flares and opens up so that people, it really wants to like grab and sort of pull people in. And then as people come off, they can sort of spill and walk east-west on either side, or to be able to cross generally within that area. The location of kind of like the pebble seating is still in flux a little bit, so we'll kind of test a few things, but it's more the concept or the idea of it being there. But there's really a good area of repose. What you see within the top side, or what would be the east side of the bridge, is some seating integrated into the bridge, and it still gives you a solid 8-foot path of travel as you're walking or passing beyond it. So really good sort of sense of spacing within it. There's a little bit more openness to the west side. On the east side, it has a very fluid kind of form to deal with a little bit of a backrest. And also, that's where the structure comes up to support it. So it gives it a very light, lacy feel on the west side of the bridge, and a little bit more of a space to occupy on the east side of the bridge. And as we come down into the north landing, And I mentioned we have a very sort of short area to land within. So there's a ramped piece, and when I say ramped, it's not ramp like you need to have a handrail. It's more of it's a sloped walk. So it's well over a 1 to 20 slope within this area, but you would sort of slip down this way and then move down in this direction to get to what would be existing grade where the parking lot is, or there's a sort of small flare that comes down where you can terrace down very shallow steps that could also be there for seating. What we found is that oftentimes you can create stairways that become seating, sort of terraces. It's a great place that people want to occupy. So if you're at the farmer's market and there's sort of events going on, just providing this kind of canvas for people to use it in different ways. We've found historically, as we've worked on a lot of these public placemaking projects, that when you give people sort of zones to be able to imagine how they're used, it's incredible, you know, the amount of gathering and things that occur there. So we just see this as such a great opportunity to provide a place and to really have a there in the middle of this and not just feel as though it's crossing. This is the sort of sense of the North Plaza. So there's concrete that's there for the sidewalk. You see the continuity of the paving that comes across. And then again, it's very shallow in terms of the stairway that's there. It's blended into the ramp, so it gives a lot of flexibility for how people would come and move onto the bridge as they would move towards Front Street or city proper. The other thing that we really focused on within this is that it would have an integrated access to the river. So as a part of the language, when it slopes down, it continues around this edge and slopes all the way down to the riverfront. So it's as though the bridge is participating in the language of the river terrace, so it feels highly connected to that. And then this is the area where now we can get down close to the water. So there's sort of some sloping within this, so it's a universal design aspect that anybody, wheelchairs, strollers, and things can get close to the river. That slope doesn't happen all the way down to the water. There's a couple of additional terraces there, but you're definitely in the area where, hey, I'm highly connected to the river within this zone. So you get the sort of sense of, it's not exactly this, but the slope sort of crisscrosses in and out of landscape areas, and then there would be small steps that would allow you to sort of shortcut your way down to the river as well. Planting species, you talked a little bit about that. I think we really wanted to integrate a lot of riparian kind of planting that would be predominantly within this area. Some trees, there'll be some shallow sort of lawn areas that people could also sit on, and it allows the water to, as the tide rises, to come up and cover those, and as it drops, it goes the other way. So here's the sort of sense of where you would have the paving that would integrate down within these terraces, and then the sort of lawn zone. So this is showing it a little bit more in a low tide condition. As it starts to rise up, some of these terraces may be covered, and all of the plantings are highly indigenous and great and riparian, all native to effectively the riverfront, but curated in such a way that it looks, it has really sort of beautiful quality of being able to inhabit the landscape, not necessarily feeling like I'm having to hack my way through to get essentially to the riverfront. A couple more of the details that are within this, just to make sure that we were really confident from a budgeting side, and that would integrate some lighting aspects that are in this as well that I'll show on the next. This is to get a sense of the river proper. Again, it's a little bit of a forced perspective, so it's kind of a narrowing, but gives you the idea of where this is elevated. You can see how the structure works in such a way that it has a real lightness to it on one side, so it feels like it's not a heavy presence within this. We're completely out of the water with this as well, which was really important to create a better flow. And you can see on the right side, it's spanning over the retaining wall, so that's completely independent, and then becoming a part of the riparian edge with the river terrace on the left. Again, you could sit, and as the water comes up, people could even put their feet in the water. It really gives you a great connection to feel like you're right there within the middle of it. And I think this one gives a real sense of, right, you could have people seated on the river terrace up above, and then on the high terrace, and this kind of social dynamic and relationship that exists there. And for the last slide, it's just covering a little bit of the lighting concepts, which we feel is really important to address what this feels like at night, both wintertime and summertime, shoulder seasons as well. And I'll kind of do the same thing, work from south to north. So when we look at the plaza itself, two ways of kind of thinking of this. One is we have some lights that are on poles that are more along the lines of like moonlighting. So what it's going to do is just allow some filtered light to spill down onto the terrace. So there's more of a shadowy kind of quality that exists. It's a very more like low level quality of lighting, very comfortable. You'd be able to navigate through. People, won't be not being able to see well, but it's not kind of a brightly lit space. The other aspect within things like this is we're very concerned with spillover light and understanding, dark sky kind of initiatives. So the other piece that you'll see within this is a lot of surface lighting. So we have things that are low, light the surfaces, which is great because you don't get glare in your eyes, and it allows surfaces to be lit really well. But we do leave an aspect of it to say, hey, you can integrate some festoon lighting into the poles. So if you wanted to have something that was a little bit more celebratory along those lines, you can do that. But it's not necessarily the all-the-time condition that you would have within that. You could do something that's a little bit more low-level within the lighting scheme overall. The surface lighting essentially happens everywhere. You can see this sort of glow. So it happens from the terraces, the benches, the edges, all of anywhere we would have stairs is also, is also important to be sure that those are well lit so people can see transitions if there is any stepping or terraces, so that there's, we're really taking out any accident fall and those types of things and creating preventative measures for that. So with that, that's kind of the end of the presentation, and be happy to
Michael,
take
can
any
you
more
just
questions.
briefly talk about, we had collectively created a larger vision for the 1.6 miles, and we had different reaches that you helped us create. And we've kind of narrowed and narrowed and narrowed and narrowed. Can you just talk a little bit about how you see this piece fitting in with that larger picture? We've talked about it kind of being like the first Lego piece, and then you add another piece as time and funding allow. But maybe you can just talk about that connected piece of it.
Yeah, boy, with that question, I kind of wish I had like a broader slide. But so we had talked about this all the way 100 block to 200 block. I think of all of the moments, and it was seen as, hey, this is a very comprehensive plan. Access to the water, both visually, as you can see here, this is more of a pedestrian, access to be able to come down to this area. But we also talked kayak launches, what it means to integrate, a complete experience within the riverfront. I think this project, what it does, if we're looking at it related to the comprehensive plan, is it's the most powerful initial realization of it, because it goes all the way from Front Street to the parking on the other side. So this has the opportunity to not only transition the area of what would be the alley and the riverfront, but connect it all the way to Front Street. But I think it's also really important to, we're trying to work through, and I think when we put that comprehensive plan together, something that will not necessarily compromise the performative aspect of how the alley has to work for the businesses that are there, but at the same time create a better sense of place and appreciation for the natural elements of the riverfront within this. I think that's why we talked about this a lot in terms of, and within that comprehensive plan, there were sort of high spaces to connect and view the river. The bridge itself gives a very unique, this is the only place where you would be able to really connect and visually see the river, rest on the river, sit over the top of the river with views looking down it. But then also on the north side, that sort of terracing and connecting down. So it's really the first illustration of this is recapturing people understanding that the river is a place to walk along, to be with. This is probably less walk along and more connected to, but I think the idea is, like, for a larger vision, what we have on that lower level terrace that comes down may slope up in a more long east-west direction, so that you feel like you're really walking along the river as opposed to just coming down to it. So I think it's a great opportunity to essentially look at this as a first phase of rethinking how Traverse City is looking at the river.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I really like the design. I think this is really great to see as a first step, like you said, along of the river project. My two questions are, with the lighting, are you considering having it controlled in some ways? You know, with modern lighting, you can control the dimming aspect of it, and sometimes it might be better to have it brighter, sometimes it might be better to have it dimmer, and in some areas of town, we didn't get that ability, and then people felt it was either too bright or too dim.
We have. I would say at this point, we don't have what are all of the aspects within it, but currently in the DD phase, and the controllability is so great because once you have it. So I would say going everything from what I would call the brightness of the lighting to a little bit of the hue. So
Color
in
temperature.
the evening, you can go more warmer temperatures than cooler temperatures. With RGB and everything that's within these things now, you could even do colors if you wanted to be festive. We're not necessarily advocating for or saying against, but I think gives you a lot of flexibility in what your controllability would
Well, that's
be.
interesting with the color changes, and you could avoid putting Christmas lights here, and having the color changing lightings could give you that effect without having to put permanent, lighting there. My other question is about the stormwater. I think it's great that you recognize the partnerships for stormwater, and I like the rain garden and the permeability things. I'm wondering, are there any storm drains within this, like, curb and gutter kind of storm drains that are directing water directly to the river within this area? Are there?
Yes, so there are, I think this is right, but you'll excuse me if I don't totally recall the perfect civil engineering. I think we had one right to the right side of the landing and the left. I know there's one. I think there's both. So they need to be moved a little bit, so that's a part of it. But we're also, from a strategic side, trying to direct it to the rain garden so that it's less is going directly into the river, more is going through the filtration.
Right, so we have gutters that are essentially collecting water out of that parking lot and directing it directly to the river, and those are the last point of that stormwater pipe that likely comes from Front Street and further out. That's all taking water directly from gutters directly into the river, washing oil and other things. And we hear oftentimes that we don't have enough room to infiltrate our stormwater. But here is a great opportunity, because we're going to be doing construction and removing things, to put in underground storage so that we can take in the initial runoff and then allow that, that water to kind of flow off the top of it, so we're allowed to catch things. So have we not considered this is a great location to do some better stormwater catchment and infiltration before we allow it to go just out to the river?
Yeah, so I think, I apologize if I didn't make that clear. That's the point that we were trying to make for the affected area that we have. We're implementing.
I understand the affected area, but still within the affected area. So I agree. That sounds great. You're treating the water that's falling within this area through the pervious paving. But we're still missing the larger opportunity that we've all, I think, been really asking and interested in, and the whole community's interested. We're directing all of our stormwater through storm pipes directly to the river, and we don't have room to do infiltration, which is what we should be doing. So we're just going to keep doing that. And here we're going to spend $5 million. And I've heard people say, well, because when I first got on the board, everybody felt like the river's where we want to make the investment. And I think for a lot of people, they think about the ecological improvements. And what I've said is, what I've heard some people say as a critique of this or criticism of this is it's the Disneyfication of the river rather than the really genuine ecological improvement of the river. And I see a lot of money going for some really great functional improvements, but I really feel like we're doing this much for the ecological improvements, whereas the opportunities to do much greater if we're to address the actual stormwater pipes in that area and to do infiltration.
Can I ask for a
Exactly.
clarification point on that, Mike? Because my brain's just not functioning very fast this morning, and also the pipes and lines are like my third knowledge base, not top. Are you talking about when we're doing this, we would be improving it for what's coming from like the other pipes on Front Street? Or are you saying doing that with what would be already part of the work scope here? Because that's just to me of a question of like possession, right? So if we're trying to get more of what's coming off of Front Street, which is very much part of city projects and things like that, that to me, if we wanted to do this kind of better filtration, that would be more of a partnership with the city. If you're talking about with just this kind of area that we're choosing to tackle, then yes, I agree, that would fall completely on us and
Well,
us to look at that.
the city's really not doing, much, if anything, substantial on stormwater. We can disagree to that in downtown. I don't know. I mean, there's things, but we have a stormwater system that's made up of a series of pipes. They start up high, and then they.
I mean, I get that part.
but
I
they
guess
all
what I'm saying
flow-
is, what are you trying to capture in that one spot? You're trying to capture more than
Well,
just what's
this just
infiltrating
happens to
here.
be,
Yes,
this
yes,
just
thank
happens
you.
to be the outlet of those
Right.
stormwater pipes. And what he's saying is, there are stormwater pipes, and those stormwater are gutters, catchments, and those are actually connected to the pipe. This is the last stop.
Yes.
All the stormwater for those pipes are coming from up.
That was, sorry,
and
that
they're-
was my
This is
question.
the landing spot. But this is why it's important in this spot. Once you do this construction, you make this beautiful, you're never coming back to deal with those pipes.
Yes.
And the place you do it is, you can't do it upstream, you've got to do it at the last stop. This is our one chance for those pipes. We'll never go and address those. For the lifetime of those pipes, they're going into the river, directly into the river. And it's like, we're really missing one of the most critical opportunities to improve stormwater in our town with those pipes. And we're gonna do it, and we're gonna go over, and everybody's gonna think it's beautiful and great, but they're not gonna realize that all the time, we're just flushing all of the waste off of our roads, parking lots, into the river, and everybody thinks, oh, we made this great ecological improvement, but we've really missed the opportunity. When you dig this up, that's the opportunity to do catchment and infiltration and real stormwater improvement. And I think you mentioned HRC, but I think you meant CRA? Is that what you
No.
meant, or HR?
No, it's
Hubble
Hubble
Roth
Roth is
Clark.
the consultant.
Oh, okay. I just would be curious, when the stormwater consultant's, perspective, if that's being considered as a part of this. I would much rather scale back some of this design and scale up the stormwater. Really invest in the stormwater improvement within this. Because I see, and all of the surveys, all of the public, surveys that we've done have said stormwater's a priority. And I think I just feel like we're not doing our service if we're not recognizing that we're missing an opportunity here.
And
If we all
really quick-
decide to go forward and say, you know what, we're not gonna do it, that's fine, but I think that everybody needs to know that we're basically covering up, we're covering up something that's really.
And Mike, my question, and I appreciate how passionate you are about it and how much knowledge you have. My question was clarifying that, what dumping point are we talking about basically? And the whole of it, which was what I thought you were saying, I just wanted to clarify. Because now we're talking about the whole system, and that includes a lot of city management and property. And I don't say that as, we shouldn't do it. I say that as, I like your idea of potentially cutting back a little bit and investing more on what we're investing, but that could be something that we're bringing the city in as well, because that, it's part of our, some of it is part of our district, but also part of it is the greater city's management issue. And so that's where we get into, I think, a conversation about partnership. And that's me wearing both my hats on this board, which is my job. And so I'm not against it, and I totally understand what you're saying. I'm just saying that if we're going to broaden that scope, I think that's something that is fair. And I also think it's something that is then can potentially use more city support, and that could be financial and other, so.
Yeah, no,
What's
they
the
could use
process?
guys-
Get
So,
the city
so,
involved.
please, Gary.
On this topic, you did mention that, there are other plans along this area that this is not exclusive of, right?
Yes.
And some of those, I mean, I know the wall there was a big debate about, do we take it down, do we not take it down, yada, yada. That is a city, to the mayor's point, that is the city's project at this point, or utility district, if we ever get one. This is not exclusive of that. If this goes in, that you can still do those things.
Yes, and.
I mean, obviously, you can do anything. Engineers love that,
I
but.
want to make sure we're talking apples to apples
Yeah.
too. So to your point, Mike, I think when we did the comprehensive plan, there's very much an integration of a much larger footprint that we're dealing with within that, which is a different project than this. What I want to be sure is clear within this is that we're still localized. So in order to do a more comprehensive stormwater issue, because not everything comes to this point, it's highly localized. So there's actually drainage that's coming off of roof and for different catchment areas that are going all along the riverfront. So that's more of a project that would be changing the shoreline or doing something much more comprehensive underground to be able to capture. And then and typically, I mean, it's a good thing too that like all the stormwater doesn't come out in one place, because that's going to, lead to potentially more erosion, or there's going to be a lot of fluvial dynamics that are going to happen there. So the way that it's currently set up, where it is a little bit more localized, is better. But to your point, what is the strategy of filtration at each one of those points? So I think this is intended to be an example of take this and move it all the way along the riverfront. And then as a part of that comprehensive plan, we had, hey, here's a way to retreat the entire shoreline. It does get into the question of the retaining wall and everything else within it. But I think also to your point, it's an allocation of funds of resources. I don't debate that, but this isn't intended to be an ecology project. This is a connector project, and we just want to do the absolute best we can with the ecology side of it, and for it to be a demonstration for things in the future. So that's kind of how we've been evaluating the scope overall.
And,
Mayor-
and,
Mayor?
and the retaining wall is on our agenda for Monday, so everybody knows.
If I can just follow up, I did, the one thing I really liked is the J. Smith walkway approach, and then there is a misunderstanding out there sometimes that when you're in a downtown setting, an impervious versus pervious, I love the J. Smith walkway, I go there a lot, but you can see in the summer when it just gets trampled, like all the ecological stuff we have there just gets trampled because there's not enough room for people.
Right.
So I like what you've done there, and I think that is an ecological improvement, so thank you for that.
So I have a question maybe for Harry. The NOAA grant, the work that's going on now, that started basically maybe 6 months or a year after actually this design effort started. So is there any overlap? Is there any, how would you characterize that work compared to what we're seeing here?
There is. So in the scope of the NOAA grant, there's essentially 3 phases, and we're just about to wrap up the first page, which is really an assessment of the shoreline. The second phase is to look at possible implementation of habitat restoration projects in the river at certain spots. We've said that one spot has to be at this location. So how those recommendations integrate with this project at this point is still unclear. And primarily those interventions would be probably right up against the shoreline or underwater. So they're connected, but we're not explicitly clear at this point how they're connected. But we have identified at least this location would have some of those remediation efforts tied to it. So.
Okay. Any other?
Are we done with talking about stormwater for now? I don't want to trample that because it's really important. I really care about that. I was going to 2 little passing things about usage here. People putting boats and paddle boards and what have you in and out of that thing at the bottom of that ramp. That's going to happen, and people are going to fish there. So just when we're thinking about visualizing, it's not just farmers markets and strollers. It's going to be like people carrying kayaks, and like I'm not sure that's allowed, but I have a feeling it's probably going to happen. People are going to show up in their kayak, which I think is actually kind of cool. But
And almost skateboarders too.
totally,
Yeah.
Yeah.
which I also think is kind of cool.
Mitch Treadwell will be there with a canoe.
I think those are great examples. So those are all things that we try to consider within this. I think in the master plan, there's more of like an appropriate kayak launch. That's not happening here, and so you try to build in best practice that this isn't going to be easy to get a kayak down here. If somebody really wants to, make the effort, how you want to deal with, all right, what's level of enforcement? Maybe Jared's great friends with all the kayakers, and you can let them know, hey, this isn't probably the place to launch your kayak. I think skateboarders is a big one. So we have a lot of sloping and things like this. What we're looking to do is to integrate within this. At all the benching within the area in and around it, we have perpendicular elements of wood. It's comfortable to sit on. It's not great to sort of ollie up and grind on the edges. So, but it's also not, the metal pieces that's like skateboarders don't come here. So it's creating a condition that's not conducive to grinding on the benches while still looking like a comfortable place to sit. So those are, details and nuanced things that we try to accommodate as we move forward into the next stages of development, but are considered highly even in this design development phase. So that way it's a little bit more expensive to do a lot of perpendicular wood slats rather than straight wood seating, but it's accommodated in the estimate where it makes sense so that we can, really encourage best behavior as much as we can.
Go ahead, Caitlin.
Any questions?
I just have two things. One, the Arts Commission and Parks and Rec are working. I saw in the J. Smith Walkway, you had landscape forms as identified as a possible resource. We're working to explore getting the Scott Klinker Theory series put on the Bayfront. So just some awareness there. It'd be great to collaborate for some cohesion. I don't think consistency
No,
is
we
key,
we
but-
love that. So
Yeah.
if Caitlin, if that's something you can, connect to Harry, just
Cool.
because I
I mean,
might not
Lauren, that's
remember tomorrow. So like, let's make sure we get that integrated in the
Yeah.
notes. And I think that goes back to the question, hey, is it connected to other things that are going on? We love the idea that it's highly synthesized with everything within the area.
Awesome, rad. That is an aesthetic goal of mine. Also, it looked like right before the elbow, the width of the bridge was 7 feet 8 inches, which is feeling as like both a connector and the one spot to overlook. That feels like a smidge tight.
It's 8, but we got a little. We're
Okay.
trying to. It did say 7, 8, but I noticed like the dimension line was to the wrong.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Even 8, like if you have like a family like looking over the river, it also like this is a commuter bridge. I know that we're creating a place here, but this is it is also a transportation corridor. So just kind of keeping that in mind with the width, with the investment, adding an eyebrow or something for pedestrian overlook would be something I'd love to consider.
Good point.
Yeah, so I appreciate what Mike was raising and kind of got into that clarification point, but I just wanted to say as a whole, kind of also similar though, Mike was talking about, I've been hearing from people, they want to see more of an ecological investment. I think also though, what I would kind of bring back to is what I've been hearing from people and some of the frustration with us, the DDA board, the DDA, however people want to refer to us, is we spent a lot of years gathering a lot of information about the river and the Boardman and the farmers market and everything, and we're finally seeing these amazing projects. Like we had a really great presentation about what the farmers market's going to look like a couple weeks ago. Now we've got this, which the renderings and everything. Just I'm imagining this place where I grew up, where I've lived my whole life, how transformative this is going to be for how we interact with the water. And I know that's been a frustration. I just wanted to kind of say in my comments here, I know that's been a frustration of the public too, as it feels like all talk, no action for years. But all that talk is giving us these amazing projects, and I am so excited to see what's rendered here. I think everybody's raised some good points or some questions of where we might tweak or improve or clarifying. But, this, at the end of the day, we could spend almost all that $5 million on stormwater as the DDA, but we're not improving that space either for, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to do some more with stormwater, what we can. It's also a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to transform a space that has been neglected for generations. My mom grew up here too. It wasn't beautiful then. It wasn't accessible then. We've got a really inaccessible, bridge there that doesn't connect very well from our farmers market that we're investing in. I see people like inching around everybody all summer trying to get to and from. And this will make it handicap or ADA accessible. It will make it accessible for people to actually sit and enjoy the river like they try to do, but then get elbowed. And I'm really excited about all of this turning our attention back to the water, which is part of it. We've got the NOAA grant. We've got some of the habitat work that's working. We've got some stormwater. The city's working on stormwater. This is everything finally coming together in a way that we've been working for years on that, again, might have seemed like we weren't doing anything. But I think when people start seeing these results roll out in the next several months, really, I mean, maybe you're going to say years, but when we're thinking about in the grand scheme of things, 24 months is going to be pretty amazing. And I think that people will be very happy with the result.
Just a quick thing on the pavers that Michael talked about. If you remember from the presentation of the farmer's market, the shingles for the farmer's market are intended to match the same kind of design and color as the what you saw today. So there's like the symmetry between both of those projects, to your
Great.
point. I know we want to move on, and for the sake of time, Michael, can you just talk about, from your opinion, what could be next steps should this board decide to continue to move forward with this project? What's the last thing that needs to be done before essentially we would put it out to bid?
Yeah, it's a great question. There's actually been a tremendous amount of progress. You're well along the way within this. So just to state, we look at essentially the design process going through 3 stages: schematic design, design development, construction documents. Schematic design is going to give you the visuals, this is what it looks like, you know, all of those types of things. Design development is a crossover between furthering those visuals and details, so you get a sort of sense of what it feels like, and technical documentation, which is what is the construction document phase. So we're at the end of the design development phase, so what's really left within this is what we would say technical documentation. I think there can also be, if there's a desire to have other visuals or things like that created that are like highly polished, that's up to you, you know, what you would want to do with something within that. We're at a point where we're ready to essentially submit the proposal for the last phase to go to bidding and permitting. We've had two really robust estimates through SD. What we realized is we had to scope down, we had to tighten up so that we could stay under budget. And then DD, we had taken a lot of that feedback and worked very closely with the estimator, and it's a third-party estimator. He's working with a lot of the fabrication teams and things like that, because what we don't want to do is get to the point where when this is bid, there's, you know, shock and what do we do, and, you know, we've shown you one thing and we have to cut back and do another. As I'm sure you're all really familiar, there's always a cost escalation the more time that goes by. So where I think we've been set up and talking a little bit with Harry and where you are in sort of budget periods and things like that, we've been working to make sure that the construction cost of this project is under $6 million, which we are. And what we would look to do is recommend to the board and to Harry and to be able to say, we could start construction documents soon. We recognize that you'll have to do approvals for a fiscal year. We could talk about even pulling a certain amount of the work, you know, forward with payment that is then when the fiscal year is approved. But you know, we would want comfortability around that. But we're looking at about a 12 to 14 week period to complete construction drawings. We feel very comfortable with the Eagle approvals, with the conversations that we've had previously to date, and that we're comfortable with all those. So after we are essentially approved to be able to move forward in the construction document phase, we would issue documents for permitting and for final construction to a contractor, and probably in the vein of 12 to 18 months, construction can be completed. As the design team without a construction manager on board, that's my throwing a dart at a dartboard. So we would definitely want to get a construction schedule from somebody who is well-versed in constructing this.
So Michael, I guess the question I have for you is, based on all the discussions we've had here today, is there anything now that you would want to take back to your team to evaluate?
I think Caitlin brings up a good point on the width. I will say we were wider. The wider we get, the more pressure we get on the cost of this. So I would say it's probably not adding a lookout, but nipping and kind of, you know, looking at what's there would be important. I think one of the things that we'd want to do is make sure that we're really clear on the stormwater stuff. What is the amount that we can capture within this? Because we do have some things. I think it's pretty robust given the area that we're actually touching. But what I'd like to do within that is to give you probably some quantitative measures. So, hey, what does that look like? And that'll be in the report and the final documentation.
I'm glad to hear that, because actually I think Caitlin hit on the nail. I mean, especially in the summertime, you have large families and groups downtown. And I could see that being it's a place that people want to go to now. You're going to get that activity. So I just think we need to make sure that we, you know, plan for that appropriately, especially with the bridge width.
Yeah. The other thing that we can do is we've implemented some software that's it's almost based on fluid dynamics with crowd control. So it can show, hey, if people are standing here, this is the kind of flow of people moving through. So you get a sort of sense of, all right, within a 5-minute period and people are standing at the edge of the bridge, what's the amount of people that can kind of travel through knowing you have people going in 2 directions kind of thing. So that's something we've done too.
Where's the bungee cord going to be hanging from?
Zip line.
We won't take any liability for implementing a bungee cord into this one.
And I just want to say really quickly, I know you started out this presentation by saying this has mostly been Renee's work, and she lives here amongst us, and so I appreciate you taking all the questions during the presentation, and Renee, I appreciate all the thought and effort you put in knowing this community to this first stab here. That's pretty, I shouldn't say first stab, that makes it sound very drafty, but, you know, this presentation for us, that's really got us well on the way to a great project, so thank you.
Thank you.
There is a recommended motion in the memo, but I'll leave that up to the board to decide if they want to move forward with that. It sounds like we have directions to move forward, so we'll take your lead on that. But
So, you want a motion? Or-
Does anyone want to make a motion, or?
I don't have it in front of me.
I'll
Put it away.
Sorry, I was a little confused if
Sorry.
the question
I
was
love-
that you were finding consensus, or if we need a motion. If we need a motion, the motion that the DDA board approve the schematic design and design development phases for Phase 1 of the Riverwalk.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion by the mayor and second by Mr. Howell.
And so we can approve this motion, but we're still going to get that data brought back to us and some of that information brought back to us, even if we approve it, just to clarify for everyone.
I guess my only comment would be if there would be a possibility to consider what the additional cost would be to incorporate infiltration of the existing stormwater lines that run through this area.
I think that maybe if I can get a head nod from Harry of maybe a conversation with the city and seeing where we're at on our planning and report that back to us or something in conjunction with this, not necessarily tying this approval, for me at least, not necessarily tying this approval to that definite investment because, again, the city has a lot of other projects too.
I said consideration. I'm not asking to make the investment. I'm just asking if it can be considered so that we know, like, oh yeah, there's, you know, this is how big that stormwater line is, this is how much it carries, and this is the size of the area we'd have to dig up to allow for infiltration of that pipe and what it would cost, just so we know. Because every time we do a project like this and we go over a stormwater pipe, that's our opportunity. Once we do that project, for 40 years, we're not going to want to come up and open that up and expose that pipe. That's all I'm saying, just to consider that cost, because I think every time we do a project over a stormwater pipe where it terminates into the river, we should at least consider what the cost would be to allow for infiltration. Otherwise, our opportunity is missed. That's all I'm asking.
So again, I think that would be a matter of, the motion is to approve the design, and we have some, obviously, have had some follow-up questions and concerns. So I guess the question would be for Harry, do you feel confident that you, from what you have gathered from the board, that you could come back with some of those answers?
I mean, we've certainly have had the city with us in this entire process. Kind of going back a couple years, you might recall that they did some work on the 100 block where they added sheet piling to address some of the sewer issues and the sewer realignment. That came with other responsibilities for the city. One of them is, and Amy addressed it, is kind of monitoring the wall structure on this block. And I think the city commission will be considering a proposal to actually do that monitoring. So it's a very extensive and fluid conversation, and there's a lot of moving parts in this. The city's been with us the entire way, and I can expect that to continue. As plans further get discussed about what happens to the wall and the adjacent areas, I think those stormwater questions should be addressed, and it's something that's been in our kind of larger ecosystem of planning for this entire project. So it's a long-winded answer, but the short answer is yes, we're working with the city on that, and we'll try to integrate that as best we can.
I was just gonna say that satisfies me, but I sometimes get grumpy on these because we always just try to expand scope, and sometimes projects are just narrow scopes. I hear the theory, I understand, yeah, you do this 40 years, but I don't think this is I think this can include other projects as we move forward. It's not gonna be 40 years. Obviously, we don't wanna rip up the nice trees and stuff on the pad here, but I'm not hearing that we would need to if the city finds money or the DDA finds money where we can do a whole complete changeover of the underwater or underground stuff. So I guess I'm just very, at a certain point, we have to stay within scope of projects, and we can't at this point start reinventing it. That's my only concern. So I wouldn't be supportive of adding that if it's just kind of inching towards expanding scope beyond something that we're prepared to do at this point.
Wouldn't
But
you want to know, though, like, we don't know.
we are going to know that we
But-
have a city engineering department that
They
works
haven't
closely
informed
with
us.
all of this.
But they haven't
so
informed us. Nobody's told us whether this project is going to prevent the ability for us to infiltrate that pipe
Maybe-
later or not. And that's all I'm asking. Does this project prevent us? Is there a way to infiltrate this stormwater pipe without digging all this up? Because usually if you're going to infiltrate, you're going to infiltrate right before that pipe enters the river. And once you improve that area, you're not going to want to go and dig that up. And so I'm asking, does this prevent us, or is there a way to do it later?
So I think,
mind-
again,
mind
to
if I
Harry's
answer
point,
that?
is the city's engineering department has been involved with this project along with so they may not answer the question directly to you right now, but, they have been involved, right? So I
Yeah,
think
but
we have to,
but
we
here's
have
the
to
thing is
assume to
nobody-
some extent
I
that
hear
they
you.
have done their
No,
due
well, you
diligence.
can assume that they haven't, because they're not doing it anywhere. And this is just the problem, is that, like Amy said,
This is-
nobody understands what's going on and nobody cares what's going on under the roads. They don't care what's going on in the pipes, they don't know. And I'm just trying to bring to light that unless we ask these questions, and if we're gonna assume that city engineers take care of this, then it doesn't hurt to ask them. And all we're asking is, have you considered this? What area would it require to infiltrate it? And can it be done after this project's done without disrupting this project?
I'm going to say something really quick because I have to, as the city commission and city representative on here. You just said they're not doing it, as if this is a consistent thing that our engineer right now has been doing. And that is an unfair assessment that is being put out there. We are dealing with a pipe and infrastructure that is generations old that no one has invested in. I think your questions are fair, and what you're raising is fair, and your final point of it doesn't hurt us to ask is absolutely fair. But you just made some very broad statements implying that engineering isn't looking at this at all ever. We have a new engineer that's been here for a couple of years. She's been doing a very diligent effort to do this. And I am, frankly, I hear this sometimes at the commission level. I've heard it at this level a couple of times. And I've heard it from a few of the same people a couple of times. And we have to be very careful about how we are talking about our staff. The city commission is going through a whole thing right now about rebuilding trust and trusting our experts. And when broad statements are made that take such a hit at our current staff, I don't appreciate it, and that is my duty here, I
hear
feel
you.
like.
I'm
'cause
certainly not making a hit at the staff. I
That's what
respect our
I'm just
staff.
saying, please
But
let's
I'm
all be
saying
aware of what we're saying.
I'm not going to assume that those conversations have happened based on, there is no examples of that. I haven't heard of no projects of infiltrating stormwater at their locations. If there are, I'm really excited to hear about it.
Great, let's
So
talk after.
Any more further questions about the motion? I do have one question for Harry, because it hasn't been brought up, but I want to ask this. All the parking spots, spaces that have been identified in this, are they all owned by the city?
Yes,
Okay,
those are public parking spaces.
all right, thank you.
I think I can try to synthesize things a little bit here, which is that, like, there's a scope that, our consultants were asked to figure out. That scope did not involve dealing with stormwater outside of the footprint of this project, as far as I understand. So at this point, making that part of this, project feels a little bit unfair. While I totally respect what you're saying, Mike, and I really think that we need to ask those questions, I do not think that the fact that we haven't got an answer to those questions is grounds for holding up the approval of the motion that's on the table. I think we need to move forward on a project which is within its scope and is promising in its, prospects, on its face. So my feeling is, let's do that. Find out the answers to your questions, Mike, and let's lean on the city as best we can to really continue to make stormwater management a high priority. But I don't think that's grounds for slowing down what we're doing here.
If I could add, maybe just to answer a little bit of the question and to understand a detail of the scope that's asked too. So one of the things that we did in the overall comprehensive plan, and again, we only dealt with the 100 and 200 block, but it was broken up into each shoreline on each side per block. So there is a recommendation of what that would be, and we do have estimates in the overall comprehensive plan. Those will be dated a little bit because it's a couple of years old, but it'll give you some idea. Relative to, maybe the request, hey, can we look at it in this area? It has to be very definitive in terms of the area. So are we looking at the stormwater from the alley in the 100 block? Like, that would be the level of detail that would be needed. And it would be definitely additional scope to what we've been doing and adjust how you're thinking about budgets and things to a significant point. So I just want some clarification to be there, and you're right, because like in a certain sense, yes, we deal with stormwater along the river. A lot of this is captured in zones that are perpendicular to the river. So also an important thing to note is this going in will in no way constitute it need to be torn up or something else happening if there's more done in stormwater in the future. In fact, this is what I would call a test case for how the perpendicular relationship would happen to the river. And then you would be working in the zones adjacent to that as opposed to tearing this up to bring it up to the same value. So that would be conceptually the theory of how to accomplish it, but it is a more significant project to do that. We're happy to look at things. I just want to make sure that we're very specific in scope, because when we say like the area, that's really hard to define what that might be.
Shelley, do you have a question?
I was just going to ask, and I don't know the process, but since stormwater always seems to be a topic whenever we're talking about anything, would it be worthwhile to do a study session where we bring the experts in and we bring the engineer in and we say, can you kind of lay it out for us? What are we doing? What do the experts say, so we can all get educated on the bigger picture? Because I'm no expert, but it seems like we need a little knowledge.
At the city level, we're working on a stormwater plan, so it would kind of show what the baseline is. We could even ask, that we're kind of working on that at the city commission level too, so that when it comes to us, commissioners know, hey, this and this and this have already been vetted, or we're not using these types of materials. So that's already in the process at like the higher level, at the body above us here. So we can certainly make sure that gets shared as that gets
I actually think it's a great idea. It's in some way, because as you said, it always comes up. It's been highlighted year after year. And so maybe just having at least some base level understanding, because not everyone is a stormwater expert. So that'd be maybe a very good thing to do.
And include,
Yeah.
people who are doing the work, so we can
Yep.
get educated by the experts.
So I'd like to call for the vote. The motion is that the DDA board approve the schematic design and design development phase for Phase 1 of the Riverwalk. Motion by the mayor, seconded by Mr. Howell. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Opposed?
Okay, roll call vote, please.
Yes.
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 Motion carries. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Renee. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can I pull out?
Yes. If we could get a copy of that before you leave, that would be great. Email or however you want
I
to do it.
think we did.
We kind of done this with the last two projects. We kind of have an unveiling.
Yeah.
So this presentation will be put in the board packet and will be on the website
Be
after our
updated,
meeting.
yes.
That's why I just want to confirm that we have it, the final draft here.
Right,
So.
thank you. Okay, moving along to TIF 97 project priorities.
So this is a good segue into the work that we've been doing for the last 2 years on our priority projects. Rotary Square, the team's working through this last design development phase. We anticipate that will be done still here, kind of late winter into early spring. That could then inform our budgetary considerations for the next fiscal year. And then the Farmers Market Pavilion, we are scheduled to be in front of the Planning Commission on the 21st, and then also Parks and Rec on early February to review the project. And then we anticipate a study session with the City Commission at some time in February to go over the overall project before it's bid. And then ideally that bid would go out in February.
Quick. Great.
I do want to, Kaylee, you got a question?
Wasn't the desire for that to go out to bid in early February?
Yeah, but we have some kind of internal checks we have to
Yeah.
make in
Okay.
terms of who the
Okay,
bodies get to see the project, so.
understood.
Yeah.
Yeah, the sooner the better for that
No
to
question.
stay on.
Yes, I agree.
So I think it just, we call it out and saying is, I don't think when we originally planning this, we learned over time that the Planning Commission has to formally approve. Is that correct?
They have an opportunity to review the project because there is a new structure at the space itself. And so they have a chance to review the project, and then they can make a recommendation to the City Commission. So it's a kind of an ongoing discussion. Because we're in Parkland, we are going to present to the Parks and Recreation Commission as well. So. With that, I do want to just take a quick moment to, for all of us to just know that we've spent the last 2.5 years identifying our 3 top projects, and now we have designs for all 3 projects. So we've made a tremendous amount of progress, and Amy, to your point, sometimes it feels like we're just kind of this motion of planning and planning. We're at the precipice of actually making these things come to fruition. Obviously, that informs our budget discussion coming up, but I just want all of us to take note that we've done some good work and we're right where we should be. So that's all I want to say about that.
Chair, my apologies.
Thank you.
I'm looking at the clock, and I want to be cognizant of everyone's time, but I was going to just do a brief overview of the last iteration of the Moving Downtown Forward TIF plan. And I know we have a subcommittee that's going to meet, and in your packet is kind of an outline of a schedule in terms of potential meeting cadences, and obviously this board will have this as part of their agenda moving forward from here on out. Essentially, our target is July, right? So if we're going to put this plan in front of voters in November, we need to wrap up the TIF plan by July. So it gives us several months to essentially re-examine the last iteration of the TIF plan and talk about things that we want to revise. And if you just go through the TIF plan, that's starting on page 57 of your packet. A lot of the things that you see here are kind of required through state legislation about what's in a TIF plan. So it can read somewhat perfunctory. I think we have an internal desire to make this a much more engaging document. So keeping with the legislative requirements, but also making this more of a story document with a lot more illustrations and a lot more friendly graphics in terms of how budgets are spent and the kind of TIF capture and that type of thing. So the plan will look different itself, but on just some of the things that we are going to be, because we've had this kind of break between it was approved in 2004 and today, we need to update some of the numbers in it. So we're going to be looking at the chart on page 61 of your packet, which is the potential project value of our district in terms of what we anticipate to be new development over the next, in the next 30 years. The projects that are listed on page 63 of your document, we spent a good amount of time and a lot of civic engagement to kind of come up with this list of projects, but I think there's opportunities to reevaluate some of those. Obviously, the retail incubator is no longer a project that's listed here, so we have an opportunity to re-examine this list, get some more definitive direction from this list, and then potentially look at the potential costs of some of this list. So that will be something, again, that the subcommittee looks like and then brings to the larger discussion with the entire DDA board. And then on page 65 of your packet, the expenditures of tax increment revenue. So we have a kind of our finite list, like this is our menu of things we want to get done, and then we have this list, which is kind of a broad overview of the things that we can address that are related to the infrastructure within our downtown district. So I want to look at that, and what you don't see in this document is a lot of things that we do that is really programming and services that are just as important infrastructure. The biggest one we've been talking about the last couple of years is our clean and green efforts. That's not really articulated in this document. I think we need to pull that out quite a bit. And then really the last piece is that I think we have an opportunity to review and discuss collectively is what you see on page 66 of your packet, which is how much we could potentially bond for, which should be related to some of the projects that we're identifying. And then the duration of the program, how many years do we want this TIF extension to be? And then I skipped it, but also are we going to include or modify kind of the share back option that we had approved back in 2024. So I'm happy to kind of take some questions, or if any people or anyone has any ideas or thoughts they want to share, but those are the elements that we have an opportunity to review. And if you saw my piece in the Record Eagle today, this is a community conversation, not just a DDA conversation, but it starts here. And so I want to give the opportunity for people to say anything as we kind of launch into this next process.
So you're saying we need to answer those questions between now and July?
Correct. Right.
I'd just like to, point out something I've been thinking about with like the retail incubator kind of plays into that, and just, we talk a lot about what makes our downtown great, and it's our local independent businesses. And I think a lot of people felt like that was a neat idea, the retail incubator. We want to support more kind of entrepreneurial, these small independent retailers. And there were some challenges with that. And I really thought about some of the existing independent retailers and the challenges that they face. And I'd like to really, for us to really seek out and hear from them what they need, what's going to allow them to continue to be successful for the next 30 years, and thinking about how we can invest in them, whether it's a grant program. So we announce a grant program annually. Local independent retailers can apply for a grant to improve things like lighting or storefronts or things that they don't have always the money to do. Maybe it's a relief program if somebody gets sick and they can't make payroll. Things that we can think about of the challenges that are unique to the local independent retailers versus the corporate retailers, and how, if we're going to maintain this balance, how do we really invest in them, and how do we prepare to invest in them? And whether that's through TIF, whether that's through some of the other programs, but I feel like that's something that's really missing, and I'd really like to see more engagement, like how we get them here, telling us what's important to them, and how do we improve the downtown for them.
That's a cool idea.
I mean, the way I kind of look at this too is if you think about our deliberations in the past, 90% of our conversations were around parking. We never really got into those sort of details. So now this is really an opportunity for us to say, hey, there are a couple things here that we really think would be beneficial that are beyond the scope of parking.
And yeah, and I appreciate, Mike, you brought it up under this point of TIF, but left it open to, maybe the argument is that TIF allows us to spend money on these infrastructure things, which frees up some of that 2% DDA funding for us to focus on some of these relief programs or other things we can build in, but just showing one way, shape, or form how we can start addressing that and how the money can be moved around to fit the needs that based on what's allowed. Because I know that TIF has some restrictions on how it can be used, but that does then allow us to open up other funding that we have to not be spent on those other things, though. So I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, as a small business owner, and some of us have spouses that are small business owners here. I already have a bunch of ideas. It's a great idea.
I would just note, just kind of wrap up this, on page 96 of your packet is I'm calling it a working timeline, because as you know, meetings come and go, quorums don't always happen, so I want to be cognizant of, obviously we know when our DDA board meetings are, but I don't know the dates and when the subcommittee will meet yet. We have had good conversations with city staff about the potential for joint city commission DDA board meetings, so that's all in play, and as well as some other kind of public engagement. Just don't have those solidified on the calendar, but those are opportunities for us to facilitate from now until essentially July. So,
My only comment, Harry, is I kind of believe the DACC, the Development Area Citizens Committee, should maybe be bumped up a month, because one of the comments, or some comments I got from the past committee, was they kind of felt it was a perfunctory process, as opposed to getting some real dialogue. And so I know it's hard because you have to have sort of a plan in place, right? And it's a state mandated thing that these citizens have to review that plan. But I think, still it allows time for dialogue.
I
right?
agree.
And so to wait
this-
to the
yeah.
very last month, the last 30 days before you have the plan due is kind of tough.
I totally agree. So that's why I say this is a working timeline. If we come to some agreement that we've had enough engagement through the community and this board and the city commission that we have direction in April, all of this can get moved, and that's kind of the last case scenario, is that we wait till that month. So.
Great.
Okay. New business.
New business. So here we are after the first of the year. We start talking about next fiscal year. So the city is in the midst of creating their capital improvement plan, which is essentially looking out at the projects identified for the next 6 years. So as a component unit of the city, we include our projects in the CIP. So we are formally walking through that process. The projects that we have identified in the preliminary CIP are consistent with everything we've talked about. So if you go and look at our plans and the project we're working on, those projects are in the current iteration of the CIP. That gets approved by the Planning Commission. And you can see on page 97 of your packet kind of the timeline for that. So just to kind of clarify, just because a project is in the CIP doesn't necessarily mean it gets done. And if a project's not in the CIP, it doesn't necessarily mean it doesn't get done either. So it's really a framework, a menu of projects that the city could work on. And then the budget is really then the implementation of what's in that first year of the CIP. That's the kind of the link. And you'll see that process on page 98 of your packet. Typically, the DDA Finance Committee kind of takes the first stab collectively for the DDA board to talk about what a framework of the budget looks like. But we have some key dates that we just need to be cognizant of. Essentially, we also do a public hearing. So by April, May, June is when kind of the rubber hits the road for the budget. So we'll be working with the Finance Committee and bringing this back to the larger board throughout the next several months. You can see in terms of what we've been considering, how we create our budget in the past, obviously the work that we're doing and we're working on, but we also look at some of the ongoing expenses and services that the DDA always knows it has to do. We have our guiding principles. The city is actively working on action statements or action items for their strategic action plan. Those things should be meshed and linked together, and we've talked about that in the past. You know, we talk about stormwater, Mike, and we actually have a stormwater management plan that was done 5-6 years ago for TIF. Those kind of documents should be brought to the forefront because there's opportunities to, we're going to work with the city to do that. So this is all long-winded of me saying this is also coming soon. I did include on page 101 of your packet the way we broke down last year's budget in terms of, for TIF at least, kind of these buckets of running downtown, building and maintaining downtown, transforming downtown, and then activating and growing downtown and growing businesses. So we'll do that same kind of budget. And if you go through this list, some of these items are not going to change. They might change in the dollar amount, but some of those buckets are going to stay the same. So if there's any thoughts, I know you had this packet for a little while. If there's anything you want to talk about today, we're happy to do that, but I kind of wanted to also kind of tee up the board for this discussion.
I just had a quick question. I know the city has been working on changing how we establish our CIP, and I'm assuming that the DDA is part of those conversations, because I know you're always part of the engineering and planning conversations.
Yes.
But are you guys kind of working on kind of following that lead and adopting that as well as things are shifting, and just making sure that you feel like you're included?
We are
as-
totally included. Yeah,
Perfect.
we are at every meeting, and it's all part of the collective process.
Excellent.
Any questions? So one thing I like to just say is, in the past 2 years, when we've gone through the budget process, I've interacted with various city commissioners, and there's 3 themes that always seem to come up. So I just want those to be in our minds when we go through this process. One is clean and green, so we know that. And the second, not beating a dead horse, are stormwater and infrastructure maintenance and improvement. And so one of the things when I think about what we as a DDA can influence, and probably what has not been maybe addressed to some extent, is our alleys. And if you look at right now the alley between Front Street and State Street, the 100 block alley, that alley is the front door to some businesses. It's used as the primary way to get to the parking lot that's next to Modes, because they've, and we have loading and unloading. So we have a lot of different uses for that alley. And if you go through that alley after any rainstorm or any snowstorm, it's very messy. And it's an issue of infrastructure, right? It's also a function of the fact that that alley has inadequately sized storm sewers. And that's actually been pointed out in the previous report. So I think that is a type of project that we as a board should be sort of looking at. I'm not saying we have to spend money like right now on it, but we should be putting that sort of in our focus, as saying this is something that we, hearing from what our neighbors say in the city, looking at what we have on the ground, this is a sort of project that we should be considering in our CIP.
That's
I
great. I
mean,
totally support that, because the city has told me that those alleys are not on any improvement plan with the city. City has no plan, no budget for that. And so unless the DDA works on that and works through either assessments or our TIF plan, they're not going to be addressed, is my
I
understanding.
think it comes in bits and pieces. So I know that TCLP does have plans to address some of the overhead utilities over a period of time. And so that collective nature needs to come to fruition to address the alley essentially from top to bottom. I think that's the opportunity that we have.
You say?
No, it's okay.
Okay. All right. Executive Director report.
The only thing I want to highlight here is, I know it's very small, but I drive by it almost every day, and it drove me crazy that essentially the last bit of the wall on the south side of the West Front Street Bridge that we had essentially not finished because we were going to do the stairs. We've worked with the city engineering to complete that railing. So I know it's a small thing, but it was very nice to see. As you've probably been reading, there's been a tremendous amount of work on the former dry cleaning building on State Street, and also upcoming demolition of the 2 buildings behind 7 Monks, to really figure out from the city's perspective that entire lot. And you'll see in this packet, I did mention that Sox had come forward with a proposal to the city, and now the city's doing an RFQ for that. So there's a lot of activity happening on those parcels now, and then a lot of discussion that will come on those parcels in the future. I do want to just note that we've been talking about the conclusion of the 2-way circulation pilot for quite some time. I think the city is doing their due diligence, and I anticipate at least a discussion, if not a decision, regarding 2-way in February. So just so everyone's aware that that hasn't left the consciousness of everybody. I think that's all I wanted to highlight verbally. Everything else is in the memo, but happy to take questions.
Okay, see none. Staff reports, Arts Commission.
Hello. Just a couple updates this month. So for the Gateway Sculpture Invitation, at their December meeting, the Arts Commission reviewed 2 proposals for Gateway sculptures as part of the North Boardman Creative Initiative. The commission is following up with artists, and we expect to have an update on this project next month. Also at their December meeting, the Arts Commission approved a proposal from organizers of the Fresh Coast Film Festival in Traverse City for a mini grant of $2,500 from the commission's Paying It Forward program. The proposal now moves to the City Commission for their final approval. We have new appointments. On December 15th, the City Commission appointed Jack Langford and Natalie Stajovanik to serve on the Arts Commission with terms expiring May 18th, 2027. And then I will amend my memo in the packet because there's one thing that we forgot to add, which was that plans are moving forward for the 2027 Mural Festival. The Arts Commission has identified East 8th Street as their corridor for the next festival. So we are excited to be making plans for that.
Where does East 8th Street start and end?
Caitlin.
We're primarily looking to partner with businesses in the social district and thereabouts.
So Garfield, around Garfield?
Around Garfield,
Gotcha,
yeah,
thank you.
yeah. But it's like, I'll say, it's a loose geographic barrier.
Yeah,
And the proposals for the gateway sculptures, is there already locations defined for that?
there are, yes. So Caitlin could probably talk with more succinct, but there's one parcel at the Riverine area, the trailhead, right next to what is now the Up North Pride location. And then the second parcel is the strip of grass along the Tart Trail at the intersection of Woodmere and 8th that leads to the library.
Okay.
Cool. Well, that'd be nice to have something there. Just a quick question, thought kind of thing. As I've heard and talked to people who are in the arts community, they really love the first mural festival, so it's exciting to hear you're planning for number 2. But as communities do this, one of the things that has been shared and we've talked about is sometimes within a certain years period, they go back to other ones and get new murals painted on, ones that were created 5 years ago or 10 years ago. So just throwing that out there, some feedback. I know the Arts Commission has its deliberative body as well, but, that can be kind of a cool way to re-engage something that has been engaged, but, it's been there, now it's part of the scenery, so to re-up the scenery again. So just wanted to share that kind of feedback, but everybody loved Mural Festival, so congratulations to Caitlin and you and Heather Shaw from our commission and all the other commissioners for all that hard work.
Yeah, I will add that when it comes to the murals, from both the Mural Festival and the murals that were put in place prior to when I was the staff liaison, all of the contracts with the property owners and the artists have a defined timeline of how long at minimum the murals need to stay on the wall as part of the agreement. The Arts Commission wouldn't want to invest in a mural going on the wall that was going to be paint over in a week or so.
Oh, yeah.
So they do have minimum timelines for the Mural Festival. I believe the contracts state that they have to be up for a minimum of 6 years. So we do have some older murals that have now outlived that contract period that could be reconsidered for a new mural.
Cool.
Okay, thank you. Sarah?
High tech today. Happy New Year. I know it's like probably too old to say that, but anyway, Happy New Year. Holiday shopping series, we kind of talked about this last time, but I do have a little bit of data. Ladies' Night saw a big old increase in foot traffic, 23% increase year over year. It was a much better weather scenario this year. Men's Night also saw an increase of 9% year over year. Our first ever Wrap It Up night, as we know, it was the Ice-ageddon warnings all night, so we did not see great foot traffic that night. There was actually a decrease year over year. Doesn't mean we're not going to do it. It was a first-year event. We had some extenuating circumstances, and it's a great reminder to get people downtown to wrap up your shopping for the holidays. Speaking of murals, during the Mural Fest, we had the Downtown Art Fair where we had the community mural start and then a number of different pop-ups facilitated by our project partner, Look, Wonder, Discover. They're heading over to the Hardy Deck entrance today to install the mural, and tomorrow is Community Canvas where the public is invited to come out, check out the mural. We also have a map full of all the different public art installations that you can take a look at, and a number of businesses are participating too with their own creative activities and offers. The media is also welcome to join us. And that is tomorrow. Crooked Tree Art Center, our other partner, is having an event, the Winter Guild. Over 250 artists. At 3:30, we're going to do our dedication. At 5 o'clock, we're going to walk down as a group to the mural. Again, media welcome to join us on that pilgrimage. Sweetheart of a Sale is coming back in February. This is an event that the DTCA hosted around Valentine's Day in the past, so we're bringing that back to get people to share the love for local business. And then Restaurant Week, one of our most popular events, is at the end of February through the 22nd through the 28th, and we are at about 50 restaurants already. I know my memo said 32, but in the last couple of days, we have seen a large increase. So it's going to be over 50 easily. Get your reservations in as soon as you can. In March, we'll have Getaway or Stay and Play. That's our spring break preparedness or staycation retail shopping event with some fun spring break themed activities. And then we're working on preparation for our arts and crafts fairs. We have the Old Town Art Fair June 13th, which is a Saturday, and then Sunday, July 5th for the Cherry Fest Art Fair. Downtown Art Fair location was at Rotary Square last year. It was amazing. It was over 2 days in September. It got like a 9.2 rating from our exhibitors. But with the Rotary Square construction in the future, we're going to probably go back to CAS. So just a little heads up. Okay. Thank you. Any questions? All right.
Question? Thank you. This is our second opportunity for public comment. Any public comments? Any comments from board members? Okay. With that, we will adjourn. Thank you very much. Thank you.